This one has 60 rings and 2 pairs of legs on each. That's 240. It has eyes, though I don't believe it can see. It is beyond our understanding.
Most people watched that scene and saw exactly what the show wanted them to see in the moment. A strange little girl, lost in her own world, talking to a bug.
The last ring has no legs at all.
She's the odd one, the one who doesn't quite fit. Sharper viewers caught something deeper. They realised that Helaena Targaryen is a dreamer, that the line about the last ring is a prophecy that points to her husband, Aegon. A clever little Easter egg about a civil war. But something much, much bigger is being revealed in that chamber. The first words Helaena ever speaks on House of the Dragon are not a clue about the Dance of the Dragons. They are a prophecy that explains the entire franchise. Season 1, Episode 6. A girl sits in the Red Keep with a millipede cupped in her hand. As Alicent politely humours her, she lays out how the entire saga will unfold in the space of a minute. It's not the first or last prophecy that Helaena will deliver, but like the others, it's mostly ignored by other characters and viewers alike. So before we get to that millipede, let me take you through every prophecy Helaena has ever made, because once you see the hidden pattern, it becomes impossible to unsee. To understand what's happening in that scene with Alicent, you have to know what Helaena is. In the world of ice and fire, a handful of Targaryens are born with what they call dragon dreams. Daenys the Dreamer saw the doom of Valyria coming and moved her entire house to safety before the freehold burned to ash. Aegon the Conqueror dreamed of a darkness rising in the north and a song of ice and fire. Daenerys, Maester Aemon. A few others have possessed this gift, and it comes with one rule: a true dreamer's visions come true. However, in George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood, Helaena is not a dreamer. She has no visions. So in House of the Dragon, her gift is an invention of the writers. This means that when Helaena speaks, the show is choosing to hand the audience information. And the tragedy the show builds around her is that nobody in her own family ever listens. Her husband calls her an enduring mystery and walks out of the room. Her mother strokes her hair and changes the subject. They hear the words and file them under Helaena being strange. She is Cassandra, cursed to see what's coming and to be believed by no one. The only people who ever truly hear her are us, on the other side of the screen. The evidence. He'll have to close an eye. Start in that same chamber in Episode 6. Aemond, still a boy, is in tears because he's the only one of his siblings without a dragon. Alicent comforts him, and in the background, Helaena turns over her millipede and murmurs the line. Nobody reacts. The line just hangs there, and the scene ends. One episode later, at Laena Valerion's funeral on Driftmark, Aemond slips off in the night and claims Vhagar, the largest dragon alive. Minutes after, in a fight with his nephews, Lucerys opens his face with a dragonglass blade and takes his left eye. He got his dragon. He had to close an eye. That's the show spelling it out in block letters. She is the real deal. Hand turns loom. At that same funeral, she stands apart from the mourners. As she turns a spider over in her fingers, she delivers the most compressed prophecy in the entire series. The hand is Otto Hightower, who has spent decades quietly working the loom of the realm to put his grandson on the throne. The spool of green is his faction. The spool of black is Rhaenyra's. Dragons of flesh weaving dragons of thread is the war itself. The dance of the dragons. Targaryen against Targaryen. Dragon against dragon. She says all of it out loud, in a courtyard, in front of everyone. Every major player in the war she's narrating, and not one of them turns their head. Beware the beast beneath the boards. 2 episodes on, at what turns out to be Viserys' last supper, she mutters another warning. The table ignores her. The next episode, when Alicent comes to tell her that her father the king is dead, Helaena says it again. Alicent half notices and moves on. And then, at the end of that same episode, Aegon's coronation in the dragon pit reaches its climax, and the floor erupts. Rhaenys, who has broken out of house arrest, comes up through the boards, scattering the crowd. The beast beneath the boards. Helaena called it twice. The Hightowers heard it twice, and were still taken by surprise. The coronation. And here's the part no one talks about. Look at Helaena during that coronation, before Meleys ever appears. While everyone else's gaze is set on Aegon receiving his crown, she is visibly distressed, refusing to look at her husband, flinching at something nobody else can see. In the last shot of her before the dragon erupts, she closes her eyes. She already knows. Not the dragons, the rats. That pattern is clear again in the Season 2 premiere. Aegon comes into the nursery looking for their son Jaehaerys. He reassures her that no enemy dragon can get past Vhagar to reach the Red Keep. She answers him without looking up. He laughs, calls his queen a mystery, and leaves. Moments later, the show cuts to a rat catcher moving through the tunnels of the Red Keep. By the end of the episode, 2 assassins, a disgraced gold cloak called Blood, and a Red Keep rat catcher called Cheese, have used those exact tunnels to reach her children, and they take Jaehaerys' head in front of her. Not the dragons, the rats. But there's a second prophecy buried in that same scene, and it might be the most chilling of all. Watch what's in Helena's hands while she's talking about the rats. She's embroidering, and the cloth she's stitching is a funeral shroud, the very garment she'll later be seen wearing to mourn her son. Here's the theory. Her conscious mind hadn't worked out what she was foreseeing yet, but her hands already had. She was sewing her child's burial cloth before her husband had even left the room. As showrunner Ryan Condal put it, Helaena is tuned into a frequency that not all the other characters in the show are. She doesn't always understand the signal, but her body receives it anyway. The cricket that stopped singing. Not every prophecy has paid off yet. In episode 6 of Season 2, Alicent finds her studying caged crickets. Helaena looks at one of them and says, 3 readings are in play, and the show has not settled which is right. The first, it's Daeron, Alicent's 4th child, raised away in Old Town, who minutes earlier is described as being as gifted with a lute as he is with a sword, the singer of the family. The second, the 3 crickets are the 3 riderless dragons of the war, Seasmoke, Vermithor, and Silverwing, and the one that's gone quiet is Seasmoke, who is claimed by a new rider in the next episode. The third, it's Aegon himself, the Laughing King, who stops singing after Aemond burns him out of the sky. Only time will tell which interpretation is correct. The Rook's Rest dream. Now pay close attention to what happens next, because it shows us that her powers are growing. At the Battle of Rook's Rest, Aemond turns his dragon's fire on his own brother and lets Aegon fall, burning, out of the sky. Helaena is nowhere near that battlefield, but when Aemond comes to her afterward, she says,
"And if I refuse, will you burn me as you did Aegon?"
Nobody told her. She wasn't there. She saw it, the betrayal, the fire, the fall. Her gift has crossed over from dreaming the future to seeing the present, clear as day, from miles away, the God's eye. And then, in that same conversation, she does something she has never done before. No insect, no loom, no riddle. Helaena speaks the future plainly.
"Aegon will be king again, you'll be dead."
In the book, Aegon does retake his throne, ruling broken and bent, carried on what amounts to a wooden seat after his legs are shattered. And Aemond dies exactly where she says, above the God's Eye, the great lake beside Harrenhal. She isn't reading symbols anymore. She's reading the future out loud, like a history that's already been written. The last ring. Now we return to the millipede. Let's run through the numbers. 60 rings, 2 pairs of legs on each, that's 4 legs per ring. 60 times 4 is 240. Then she hands you the other number herself. 60. 240 plus 60 is 300. 300 years. That is, almost exactly, the span between Aegon the Conqueror taking the Iron Throne and the moment that throne ceases to exist at the end of Game of Thrones. The rings are the years of the dynasty. And the last line, the last ring has no legs at all. In the very first episode of Game of Thrones, a boy is thrown from a tower window and loses the use of his legs forever. 300 years after Aegon's conquest, that same boy, Bran the Broken, is crowned ruler of the realm the Targaryens built. He is the last ring in the chain, and he has no legs at all. The other reading was never wrong. Aegon really is a broken-legged last son, but the line was doing 2 jobs at once. A little girl in a chamber in the Red Keep, holding a millipede that nobody else in the room would even look at, counted out the entire length of the Targaryen dynasty and told you how it ends, with a paralyzed seer who sees everything, on a throne 3 centuries away. And the Easter egg the show buried in Daemon's vision, the future 3-eyed raven growing into a weirwood tree, was the writers confirming it. This is all one story, one thread, and she read it first. House of the Dragon is not just a Targaryen civil war, it is the opening chapter of a 300-year arc. Helena's family tore itself to pieces over the Iron Throne, but the throne outlasted every one of them. So the next time you see Helaena alone in that chamber, muttering to a bug while her family ignores her, you're not going to see the odd one who doesn't fit. You're going to see the only person in the room who knew how the story would end. Thanks for watching. If you want more of the meanings buried inside scenes you've watched a dozen times, subscribe. There's a lot more waiting underneath the surface. We'll see you in the next one.